This Aries season is going to be very gifting to the cardinal signs. So that would be Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So if you have a good friend in one of those signs, and you know that they have a talent that maybe they haven't been exercising and putting forth, or they're scared, or they're intimidated, or whatever the case may be, give them an encouraging nudge to say, hey, you should put this out into the world, because we need all of the fucking art out in this world right now, in this climate, in this collective.
I know.
We need it all.
We do.
Bring it. So,
yeah. I mean, everything that Rachel said, like tapping into that go-getter energy that Aries is so great at, and just setting some new intentions for yourself and seeing where it leads. Now, I thought something else that was really interesting. We talked about this on a previous podcast where Rachel had journals that she wanted to release and burn at some point. And I had made my notes, and then I got this message from you that you had done it, right? With this video.
A big one. I had found a massive journal that, yeah.
And so I had made notes about, like, you know, when you want to harness this fire energy, doing candle spells, doing burning rituals, like these are all really good ways to tap into that Aries energy. And boom, boom, here you are doing it. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. I mean, basically, I had these journals from my 20s when I was, I would say, not really in touch with like my inner self. There were a lot of impulses that I would act on, and then I would feel shame for acting on them, drinking too much, having sex, just making bad decisions, or what one might perceive as bad decisions. And then I would write in my journal about them. And it was interesting how I used to write. I wrote a lot about my appearance, my weight specifically. I was living in France for this one particular in this journal. And hi, living in France, the food is fucking incredible. It's amazing. And all I would do is say, my ass is getting big. I'm eating carbs all the time. I never wrote in a positive light. And it was the same with my relationships with my friends. I would always write about what one of them was doing to piss me off. Like, it was just really interesting looking at how I would write. And like, I just write so differently now. Now I write from a place of, this is how I feel. These are the details of what happened. You know, I just write so incredibly different than how I wrote before. And I was so hard on myself. And I read the whole journal again, most of it. And then it got to the point where I was like, yeah, I don't want this. I don't want these words to define who I am, because that version of me is no longer in existence.
This is such a good example of how you can literally change your life anytime you want to. You have completely changed how you speak to yourself now. And that's evident in how you journal now versus how you journaled in your 20s. And for me, if we go back to what we talked about in the beginning of this episode, the takeaway is that you've passed that on to your kids, because your daughter is writing notes about how much she loves her friend.
I know, that's so true. And how grateful she was.
Right.
I didn't use the word, I wasn't using vocabulary in these journals in my 20s when I was like having these moments that shaped who I was. When I lived in France, that shaped who I became.
Right.
That environment, those people, the culture, the architecture, the energy of where I lived shaped who I became. And when I read this journal, I didn't fucking capture any of that.
Right.
I ridiculed myself. I shamed myself. All I wrote about was everything that I had, quote unquote, fucked up. How I didn't learn French fast enough. Like, I had so much sorrow for that version of Rachel, but also gratitude that now I can look at that and I can say that I was living my life in maybe some would say in an unhealthy way, but it shaped who I became. And so I'm grateful for that time, but I don't want to have those words on paper for that girl.
So if you were going to go back now as today's Rachel and write about your experience living in France, what would it look like?
I would write about the details. I would write about the layout of the bedroom that I had at this woman's flat and how every morning I would open my windows, these giant, like not floor to ceiling, but like pretty much close to it. And I would open these old shutters out to let the light in. And I would be looking out over, now the word's going to escape me, but Paul Cézanne was the artist that captured the mountain that's right in Provence. Now I can't remember it, right in Aix-en-Provence. And how I would have that view. I didn't draw. I didn't, paint. I didn't capture any of the amazing things that I saw, and about how I would walk to school because we walked everywhere. And I actually lost weight. That was the ironic thing. All I did was write about how I was eating all of these carbs and my ass was getting bigger. But in reality, I lost weight. My body shape completely changed because I walked everywhere. I would write about the food and how incredible it was. Like, I just would write about the beauty of, and whether it be having sex with a boy that I had class with, and going into more detail about that. I never wrote about the people in like detail.
Right.
I just used their names. Like I was going to fucking remember anything about them 25 years later. Like I was like, there was one guy I wrote about a lot, and I'm like, I have absolutely no memory of him.
Isn't that funny?
Like, I wish I had a picture. Maybe that would jog my memory.
I have memories of people that I can remember very detailed things about them and their importance in my life in that time of my life, but I can't remember their names.
Mm-hmm.
Does that happen to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I asked you to draw a sketch of that mountain, would you be able to?
I would.
You can see it in your mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
That's my challenge for you this Aries season, is to rewrite, flip the script and rewrite in a different way and just draw that view that you would see every time you would open those shutters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a good exercise.
That to yourself.
Yeah. Such a good exercise.